up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of Ask Alex, where this is the show where I take your questions and answer them here on this show. But today we have a special show for you guys. I'm doing a really great interview with a dude I've been following for like the last year and a half now. You've seen me interview a few Schmodown competitors, but this is not just a Schmodown competitor. This is a commentator on the Schmodown and on channels like Jay Washington and even John Roca. He is a actor and I would consider potentially a director, a really cool media personality. I'm sure you've seen him all over the internet. I would like to welcome Mr. Winston Marshall. How are you doing today, Mr. Marshall?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's funny because my middle name is actually Alex. I went by Alex my whole life.
Oh, wow.
The only if anything, my nickname for anybody that was close to me was Amar. The only reason I started going by Winston, there's two funny stories that I did from like 2nd to 8th grade at this private school I went to. Because my mom, when I got there, was like, hey, there's a lot of Alexes already here. Do you want to go by Winston? I was like, why would I do that? That sounds terrible. And she goes, well, if you do it, I'll rent you a blockbuster movie. Or like, you think I'm an idiot? You think I'm going to give up my name for a single blockbuster movie that goes back in 3 days? I'll do it for 3. So then my mom was like, okay, fine. So once I got to high school, I started going by Alex again and Amar. And then when I was in college, some girl at a party took my ID. I was like, oh, don't look at that. And she's like, Winston, who's that? And I was like, whatever. Like, I don't really go by that. She's like, well, Winston's sexy. He's like, yeah, I'm Winston. What's good? Yeah. What's up? So I've known to fluctuate back and forth, but that's part of why I kind of did the Samuel L. Jackson thing, and I go by Winston A. Marshall, because there's like a Winston Marshall in, I think it's Mumford and Sons. And then there's a Winston Marshall in Canada, and this ugly ass dude. I'm not gonna lie, dude is spelt like he's jacked, but like, and so I was like, all right, I need to find a way to nod to what I've been my whole life, but then also, you know what I'm saying? So I just respect any Alex I see. I'm like, I see you, bro. Like, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I mean, that's dope, because my full name is Alexander. And
mine too. Yeah.
Oh, see, that's really dope. That's really dope.
Winston Alexander Marshall, man. 3 first names, 3 last names.
See, that's dope. And see, growing up for me, when I would have like teachers or people I consider peers call me Alexander, I always felt like I was in trouble. I just felt like it didn't really gel with me. So when my mom started calling me Alex, I don't know, it just fits. It fits me.
It fits more. Yeah, I feel you.
You know,
I 1,000% feel you. And it's funny because I joke all the time. Since my dad's Guyanese, he's got that West Indian in him, and so when they named me Winston Alexander Marshall. My dad was like, my son's going to be a Supreme Court justice. And I was like, I'm a comic. How you feel about yourself now, Dad?
Hey, but you're also an actor, so you could play a Supreme
I could play
Court
one, right? You know? That's true. That's true.
You, Winston, the one thing that I loved about you in particular when we're in the Schmodown, and there's a bunch of characters like this, but you in particular, you are like one of the funniest dudes there, like next to Josh McCouga. You are hilarious. But before we get to Schmodown, I did want to ask you, how has this quarantine affected you? Because I mean, in Orlando, like, you know, this is the city of like Disney and Universal and all this other stuff. And I can just imagine what's going on in LA. But how has it been just being home and having to utilize your resources at home?
Yeah, I'm one of the unique cases where I don't have a very normal COVID situation. So because I act and host and stuff, but I have to hold a day job still. I actually held down 4 day jobs, actually. All of those disappeared. They all either ended or furloughed because of quarantine. But I fall into that weird category where I don't qualify for unemployment because I have both W-2s and 1099s. So the minute you have a 1099, they go, okay, you got to file for this like pandemic unemployment thing that they were doing that was special for self-employed people and independent contractors. But if you have any W-2s, they go, well, you have to apply for regular unemployment. So I'm caught in that weird void where because I'm a hybrid, I don't get any support. And I still haven't gotten my tax return and I haven't gotten a stimulus check. So I've been I've been that weird case where the only thing that has been saving me has been random donations via like Streamlabs from any of the live stream stuff we've done. Any of my patrons, that has also been super helpful. Friends and family that have been so great. And then Instacarting, which was super lucrative at first, but then they hired 300,000 people because they were trying to help meet the demand. And then there was some stuff about a bot like that was taking the high-end job. So it's been an up and down roller coaster of like, am I going to make it this week? Am I not going to make it this week? Right. It's been stressful as hell. I think the few things that have been a saving grace, I actually booked a Budweiser commercial the first week of quarantine that they actually shot from home. So that helped keep me afloat a little bit. It's been crazy, man.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, I have some friends who actually live in Los Angeles, and they act as well. And you know, they're doing like Uber, they're doing Uber Eats, they're doing DoorDash, because a lot of their gigs that they had lined up since this whole craziness happened, it just shut down. But I'm actually glad to hear that you're trying to utilize your resources. But I'm definitely gonna keep you guys lifted up in prayer, because like I've been home myself. And if it wasn't for, I would say, unemployment and honestly the grace of God, I don't know how I would be doing this.
Just give me one. Give me unemployment. Give me the stimulus check. Hell, my tax return isn't even that much, because it went from I have to pay $3,000 to I'll maybe get about 700.
Yeah.
Give me any of those three, I would even feel a little bit better. But like, I'm just constantly straddling the line between okay and demise. So I will take all prayers. I am totally fine with that, man.
Definitely, man. So I wanted to ask, like, how did you get started in acting? Like, what prompted you to get yourself here in Los Angeles?
Yeah, so I've actually been acting since I was a kid. The private school that I mentioned that I went to, the drama teacher there was a series regular on Wishbone. And she actually got me an audition for the Barney movie. And the funny thing about it was I was right at that age where like Barney wasn't cool anymore. So when I came in, they were like, all right, Winston, can you sing the Barney song for us? And I was like, I hate you. You hate me. And they're like, well, thank you. Have a good day. And, so at first I knew it was something that I enjoyed doing. But I didn't really take it seriously. But in about 5th grade, I went to an audition, and I actually ended up working for radio, like booking, and then working for Radio Disney from like 5th grade until I graduated high school. And it was something that I always enjoyed. I loved imitating voices and stuff like that. And so I was like, I think this is what I ultimately want to do with my life. I didn't really tell my parents, because my mom was like, my son's going to be a doctor. He's so good at chemistry. And, I got to college. I went to the theater department and booked one of the leads in my very first semester. And I just was like, fuck, I think this is what I got to do. And I rode that out to the end. And, once I graduated, it's just been like a hustle. And that's the thing about LA. It's finding that balance of making it to your auditions or doing stand-up shows if that's where the route you're going or whatever, but then also making sure you can cover your bills, because there's nobody comes out here and just magically starts booking stuff. The only time I've seen that is if you see a lot of young women that are very attractive. There's a lot of quickness into modeling or commercials like that. I've seen some of them go quick, but a lot of times it doesn't always translate. They'll take a few photos of you for like a 6 months to a year, and then they fizzle out if they haven't flipped it. You know what I mean? If they haven't turned it into something more substantial. So it's been I've been graduated college about 10 years. It's been a rough 10 years for sure, but I've seen a lot of success and failure, and I've only grown from it. And now I'm kind of hitting a stride that once the industry opens back up, I have a lot of stuff kind of waiting for me as I get there. So I'm very excited about it, but we still got a long mountain to climb,
Oh yeah, man. Trust me, I understand. Like, I just with the regulations that they're doing now about opening Hollywood productions just in LA or just in different cities, seems like it's going to be very tight than it was before. And my next question was going to be like, how did you what was your first role that you booked, and what did you feel like when you first got that first thing when you came out to Los Angeles?
Okay, so I want to say probably like I'd have to really think about this. I think the very first thing I booked out of college was this PSA about like pollution and like regulation of that. It was sponsored by like the executive producer was Adrian Garnier. That was Vincent Chase and Entourage. And it was super cool. Like I booked it, I was like, oh shit, like I'm out here, I'm making it. Like it's been like 4 months. Like I'm already like, this is huge. It didn't really get that much traction, which is fine. But I remember that feeling just being so intoxicating because it was like, man, like I've spent all this time training and everything else. Like this is really growing. I feel like the one that really felt like something truly special though would probably be probably more recent. In 2018, I did I actually was ready to quit. I went out to, I had been on a veil, for those that don't know. That's when a casting director or casting office is essentially like, hey, you're like our top 1 or 2 choice right now. It's now up to the client how they want to go with it. So it could be something as simple as it's between you and an Asian guy, and it's like, oh, I think we want to go Asian versus black in this case. Or it's like, oh, it's between the straight couple and this gay couple. Oh, we think we're going to go with the gay couple this time. It just, whatever they're looking for in that particular moment, they're giving them options. And if you're on a veil, it's between essentially you and 1, maybe 2 other options. That's it. And I had been on a veil 3 times in a row and didn't book it. And I was like, maybe this is it. Maybe like I should just be out. And, you know, I'm agnostic. I was raised Christian though. And I found on this night that I was on a veil again for a Johnsonville commercial. And I got on my knees and I was just like, yo, I know we don't talk a lot, but like, just give me a sign. If I should be done with this, just put me out of my misery. I'll move on and try and find something else. The very next morning, that was Friday night. The very next morning at 9 a.m., I get a phone call from my agent being like, you booked the Johnsonville commercial and I got an audition for you for another one tomorrow. And I was like, shit. And then I went on. Sorry, I didn't even ask if I could swear. I apologize, sir.
You can. This is open and all unfiltered.
Okay. All right, bet. And then I went on a roll the rest of that year. I booked 2 more commercials. I booked a Nickelodeon movie, and I booked an episode of Sydney to the Max, which is like the big premiere Disney Channel show right now. And it was one of those things where I was like, all right, I'm glad to know that like I got my sign. You know what I mean? That like I've worked too hard for this, and I've pushed so long, and I'm right here. So this is just what I needed to do. And that was around the time as well that I found I had been on the Schmodown a little bit. Me and Christian had started to get a little bit closer. You know, last year is when he left Collider to start SCN. And like he had me on Collider a number of times to guest host. And even when like Makuga was out of town, they asked me for a week to like fill in his shoes and stuff. And then things have just kind of continued from there. So there have been a lot of just like random ups and downs that have come and gone. But I think 2018 was that moment where all of this stuff started to click into place for me, and I started to really get it and like move forward now.
That's actually very inspiring to hear, because as a actor director myself, that's the type of hurdles that I've seen myself go through. I know that I'm trying to break out like into the online fan film space. Creating my own opportunity before I get to Los Angeles. But I understand that, like you said, it's a grind. Like you literally have to go out there and put yourself out there. And to hear those type of stories are very inspiring for people like me, especially like black men like us. I understand that there's always something going against us, but the fact that we get those little wins make a lot. Like for me, this interview is a little win with me, because you're because you're the second black Schmodown competitor that I've interviewed, and I'm like, awesome. Like this is something I'm so proud of. But it's funny. We talked about the Schmodown, and I saw you. I forgot what your team that you were on previously for your new team. It was like a superhero team.
The World's Finest.
World's Finest. Dope team name, because Batman and Superman are amazing. Not so much the movie, but the team is amazing. But what was it like? Because I was watching the Schmodown since I want to say 2017, and the only black person I saw was Jay Washington, and then I saw John Roca as well. That was the only really diversity that I saw at that time. And then when I saw that Christian allowed more players like Dorian and yourself and Janine and a lot of other players, I was like, oh, okay, this is becoming a melting pot. I'm excited. So when World's Finest showed up, I was like, these dudes are funnier than Josh McCouga. Like, and on top of that, you guys were really good at what you guys were doing. So I wanted to ask, what was it like getting introduced into the Schmodown? Like, how did you get into that building? But, and side note, I've always wanted just to visit that studio just to see what it looks like.
Great, man. Well, when you come to LA, just hit us up, and obviously it's going to be a minute before we're back in studio. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times we, depending on the scenario, because we can only have so many people there at a time. Yeah. I'll see what I can do and see if I can get you in to come see a taping, man. But it was dope. I literally went because a homegirl of mine, I don't know if you've heard of Cheyenne Walu. She was one of the co-founders of Pretty Brown and Nerdy. Yeah. And she herself is an actress and a content creator and all that kind of stuff. She was like, hey, I'm going to go to this thing called the Schmodown and watch the match. They give out free pizza. Like, you want to come check it out? But they also have a large following. So she was like, I know you're also trying to expand out. If you want to check it out, they were talking about maybe getting some new competitors in. I was like, all right, sure. So I went through. I talk about a lot how my first match was Lon versus Cody, and I instantly fell in love because Lon's whole professor spiel, he brought out a syllabus. Like, it was the most ridiculous shit ever, and I was like, this is amazing. And so when it was over, I just talked to both Ellis and Christian, and I was like, this is cool, like separately, but I talked to them, I was like, this is really cool. I would love to be a part of it. Like, I know a lot of nerd stuff. Little did I know that, because my nerddom kind of falls more towards comics, anime, manga. So I know a lot about the MCU, for example. But like, I've honestly seen 1.5 Lord of the Rings. I hate Star Trek. I love Star Wars, but I don't know it to the extent that the Star Wars division knows. But Christian misheard me. I told him I would love to do the Inner Geekdom. He thought I said teams. So he hits me up before my thing and he goes, all right, we got like a week out to your match. You have a partner, right? And I was like, So I called up my boy Eric, who I went to college with. I was like, hey, man, you're the person I know that knows about movies more than anybody. Like, if you want to do this, like, online trivia thing with me, it's like wrestling meets trivia. And he was like, sure, why not? And the rest is history, man. Like, we just showed up and they asked about a team name. And I was like, Eric, you want to do, like, the world's finest, do, like, a Batman, Superman shit? Like, he's like, yeah. And we just went in and had fun. And it apparently, because Janine wrote about this, the day we debuted was the same day that she did. So there was this weird, like, connection between the two of us where it was just like, oh, shit, okay, another person of color in here, like, whatnot. I had met Jay when I went to go see the Lon Cody match. And when I tell this all the time, too, where I was like, oh, what's up, man? He's like, all right. Like, walked off. You know how black people be sizing people up with other black people when they walk in? Yeah. Did you ever watch Key and Peele?
Yes, I love Key and Peele.
Do you remember the acapella sketch?
Yes.
Where he was like, I've been working these white boys for 2 days. Yes. What makes you think you can come in here, work my set? Like, it was essentially, that was the reception I initially got from Jay. It was like, these my white boys, what you doing here, son? Like, it was very, very crazy. But it was a very welcoming group. Everybody was super nice. The fact that I had mentioned to Christian that I was like, I want to do like a black cinema Schmodown and I want to challenge Jay to it. He was like, yeah, that sounds great. Which hopefully you've seen that match before, because it was.
Oh yeah, I was going to get into that because I was just like, oh my God. Like, I was like, wow.
That was one of my favorite days by far of the Schmodown, was taping that. That was so much fun.
No, it's funny that you bring that up because I was gonna say, I feel like, although I love that episode, I feel like that should be a live event. Like, you get one of my things that I was like, I would love to give Christian an idea is that you get Janine, Winston, Devon Stewart, Jay Washington, and y'all have a like Black History Month movie tier trivia showdown where y'all talk about black superheroes, black positive movies, not just slave movies, and y'all just go at it like a free for all, you know. And I mean, I would love to see it. And it's funny that you bring that up because I was gonna ask how did that come about, but you pretty much explained it. But like, I noticed that with Christian is really updating like the audience and well, not just the audience but the competitors and the levels of tiers you can do in terms of his patrons. So I just want to ask you, as you see Christian developing the Schmodown with SCN and everything, do you think that it's going to become like as big as something like a Screen Junkies or you know where they do movie fights? Because I think Screen Junkies has like I guess 1 million subscribers somewhere in there. And like the Schmodown, if I checked correctly, it was like 400,000, something like that. And
Something around there,
yeah, and I was just like, if they keep going on the road that they're going on, personally, I think that they're going to, if not meet up to that goal of 1 million, but surpass that. Because from what I'm looking at, outside looking in, it looks like it pays for itself. I mean, I could be wrong, but
there's something to be said about all the patrons. They're a huge element to it. There's something to be said about the sponsorships that have come from it, and you do need to continuously have the growth. So where I give Christian and Mark a lot of credit is they are constantly looking for ways to further expand out and to get that recognition. The fact that we are being featured on ESPN in their esports division is pretty huge. The fact that you have such major names coming in, like with Chris Jericho and Kevin Smith, and Brittany Young from Glow, and all this kind of stuff. That's huge as far as also giving a little bit more recognition towards the Schmodown. So I think as they keep making steps like that, it will only continue to grow. And the other thing about it that's so huge is that these are all people also, for the most part, in the Schmodown that are in the industry. These are critics. These are other comics. These are, hosts and actors. Obviously having Jared Habon from the Bachelor franchise and stuff like that. Like you are only bringing more eyes from different areas in, which will continue to help it grow out for sure.
Yeah. And I asked, I forget who it was that I asked. It was either Robert, Meyer Burnett, or Devon Stewart, but I asked them, is the Schmodown scripted? Like, do some of the comparators really hate each other, or is that just, banter amongst you guys? Like,
it's all relative. I'll be 100% honest with you. I think just like any situation, any TV show you watch, like you do have a situation where like someone's playing a hero, someone's playing a villain, and they could be best friends off screen, or there could be some genuine tension between people on the stuff. So it happens for sure. I can't give you the ins and outs because I don't know everybody's personal relationships and stuff like that. But anything that you see really on screen, that is part of the stick. I do not hate, like, I guess the jig is up. I do not hate Eric Zipper at all. He's one of my best friends in the whole world. But at the same time, like what he did within the Schmodown, I mean, fuck him. You know what I'm saying? So like, it just depends on what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, it totally depends. So I will be in his face and roast his ass 24/7 when it comes to the Schmodown. But outside of it, that's still one of my best friends, like from back in the day, and will always be.
I noticed that because when I talked to, I believe it was Devon, like, he said that there isn't like a pen and paper where you guys read this and then y'all say this. It's more like here's this idea, go with this. Like the first time I saw John Roca get thrown into get taken down by Andrew Guy, I'm like, okay, Andrew Guy's like this big. John Roca's like this big. I don't really see Roca allowing that happen.
Watch football though?
I do, but like,
because Fred Gore is like this big and he trucks people and he's still trucking people. So like, it happens.
That's true.
But,
that's true.
But yes, the easiest way to describe it none of the outcomes. Those matches are all 1,000% real. It genuinely is who is studying, who knows their ish, and who's up there doing that. That is not scripted. If anything, what Christian does is he has a plan A and a plan B based off of who wins and who loses. So if this team wins or this competitor wins, storyline's going this way. If the other team wins, the other competitor wins, storyline's going that way. So it just depends on what is going on that different things will potentially happen. But also it's mumblecore. So the idea is that Christian will give us an idea, but then it'd be like, this is what I'm looking for. And then it's just completely up to us. So when you see people out here doing these interviews or talking trash or whatever, so like, for example, Christian didn't tell me anything about handing Roxy that L. It was just like, as a manager, he was just like, do you have fun? Like, your push-pull, like whatever. And originally he told me like, hey man, like you're a face faction. Like you guys have fun, stuff like that. And I kind of mentioned, I was like, I could be a face, but at the same time, as a black dude, you got to understand, and I'm sure you know too, we play the dozens. Yeah. So I could be the nicest dude in the world, but if your shoes looking busted like you stole them from a homeless man, I'm going to tell you. Like, it just is what it is. And so that idea came to me just randomly because I was like, look, like Roxy talks a lot of trash, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to handle this L and see what happens. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, like, it's funny. It's funny you said it because when you see John Roca, right, he's always talking so much trash. But when I got to meet him in person in Orlando, I'm like, this is the nicest dude that I have ever met. Like, he literally sat down and talked to me for like a good 5 minutes. I'm like, you don't know who I am. Like, I only know you from what I see. I'm like, wow, like this is just mind blowing. But I wanted to get into that. So you do a weekly show with Jay Washington, John Roca, called Game Time. It's like, in my opinion, it's better than First Take. Personally, I get tired of watching anytime I get tired of watching Stephen A. Smith rant about the same thing all the time.
Stay off the weed.
Exactly.
That's a bad man.
Exactly. And you guys do that show, and I just want, I know that since the I won't say the demise, but since the cancellations of a lot of shows at Collider, it's kind of put those creators in a position of creating their own content. And John Roca was doing like a game, like a football sports show on Collider that kind of transitioned into his own thing now. So I just wanted to ask you, what was like that transition like? Because you were on that show too, on Collider Sports, and now John Roca's Game Time. So do you feel a difference in terms of doing each show? Because he hosted both of those shows.
I would say the two differences are, we are one being in studio and one doing via like StreamYards and all that kind of stuff from our own stations. Mm-hmm. Part of that has to do with quarantine. I mean, to my knowledge, I don't think Roca has fully set up. Like, I know he's planning on opening a studio at one point. But I think he's a little ways off from that. So that's the first part. The second part, honestly, is actually getting some money for doing this versus before I was just anything I did at Collider. I didn't get any money for. That was just hey, do you want to come in? And et cetera, which is fine. I mean, there's a lot of that ends up happening around here. And what I do appreciate about what's happening now is that there is some monetary compensation for doing all the stuff that's going on now,
Yeah, and also you also do a show with my favorite competitor, Jay Washington, the swaggy Blurs, what's it called? Blurs in the Hood. Blurs in the Hood, which I think is so creative, so dope. Honestly, if you would have told me, like, if I would have first seen that show and not know who you are, I would have instantly thought you guys were brothers. Like, how did that chemistry just come like that?
Well, okay, so with Jay, what ended up happening, if I remember this correctly, started to get to know him at the Schmodown. We got cool. I want to say the first thing we did was the Black History Month Schmodown, and he was like, okay, this is actually pretty funny, like whatever. He's like, I do a podcast. Do you want to come be a guest on it? I said, sure, fuck it. Mm-hmm. So I went over to his place and did the podcast, and then he was like, I do reviews of TV shows. Do you want to review Titans with me, and I was like, should like do an episode of it. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And we just kind of clicked. So then we decided we're gonna do Doom Patrol, which to me is some of the funniest shit that we ever did. If anybody has, first of all, if you haven't seen Doom Patrol, you're missing out. That show is incredible.
Very much.
But if you go watch our reviews of Doom Patrol and Swamp Thing, we essentially just did the roster of DC Universe shows. But if you see our reviews of Doom Patrol and Swamp Thing, you can just see this vibe just kind of going off. We realized we had this chemistry, and I just was kicking it around him. I was like, "Hey, man, I know you're doing your podcast and everything. But what if me and you did like a show? What if we did like a Jesus and Mero, but like nerdy? You know what I mean?"
Yeah.
And so we started brainstorming a little bit, and we tried to shoot like a pilot thing. It didn't really work. And then I connected him with my manager, and my manager now reps him as well. And then we were like, let's try this again. Let's try and do this again. And, this was episode 22 today. When we're shooting this on Tuesday. I don't know when you're dropping this, but this week was episode 22. So we've just been doing this for, that's almost 6 months now. And it's just been an absolute roller coaster, but it's been incredible. It's been cool to see our viewership start to slowly grow. We had a huge boost from doing our town hall, which we just wanted to take that time to really educate and share our experiences with people that may not know. And it's been phenomenal, man. It's been super dope. And now our next step is not only to continue to grow the audience, but hopefully find some sponsorships. Because part of it too is that if you're making money off of this stuff, that gives you more time to make stuff. If you're not making money off this stuff, you do what little you can, and then you got to go work a job. You know what I mean? You don't necessarily have time to do both. So if we can get to a place where we're making some like good money off of it, then we could stop. We could either take less shifts or quit those jobs completely, and all we're doing is making content and booking stuff. And that's the dream, obviously, for anybody. So that's why we just want to always make it better, higher quality, like quicker, like connect better with our community. That's what we're always just trying to figure out how to make it better and better and better and better.
Yeah, I've seen. I remember when Jay would put videos out, and I can say from when I started watching up until now, his content has definitely grown in terms of quality, effects, and just adding people on his content as well. So he's definitely growing in terms of being a content creator. So and I watch Blurs in the Hood because it's like I'm watching something that I can relate to, and the thing is that with Collider, and I'm huge fans of everybody at Collider, but the thing with Collider was that I didn't feel like there was something there that I could fully relate to just yet. I mean, I loved the fact that they had brought Jay Washington to do like one episode a week of movie talk.
Movie talk.
Yeah, and movie talk. And then also I would love some of the guests that they would bring as well for Heroes and movie talk as well. But I don't know, like it just, for me, it just didn't always merge with me. But when I started watching Blurs in the Hood, I'm like, okay, notification every time it watches. If I'm at work, I'll try to watch it before work or after work. Like it's literally like something I watch religiously. And anytime. And yeah, it's just one of those things that I love connecting. But I have two more questions I wanted to ask you. One is actually a question about the whole protest of everything that's going on. I know on my channel I spoke about Black Lives Matter. I wouldn't wish what happened to George Floyd or anyone that's been through police brutality happening on anybody. And I've noticed that the protests here in my city have been going on almost every day since then. And I wanted to ask you, how has it been in Los Angeles? I see a few videos here and there on Instagram, but last I checked, the National Guard was actually there.
They were. The last protest I went to wasn't this past Saturday, but the Saturday before. I was going to go to the big one, the big Pride/Black Lives Matter protest, which got labeled All Black Lives Matter, which I think, while I understand what they were doing, I think that you're running dangerously close to screwing up what you're trying to say. Because you could say if you had named it like Every Black Life Matters, like that to me maybe you wouldn't have potentially muddled with some of the anti-protesting that happens. But yeah, you've seen protests almost every single night. The National Guard was out here, but they've been super low key. They haven't done anything, but you will see them on random blocks just kind of hanging, which is a little trippy because they are there with their rifles and everything else, and so you're a little on edge. But they wave to some people. They're very, very mellow. And what I've noticed is there is still, I've heard a little bit of brutality coming from the police, but a lot of it has like slowed or stopped because they were getting such bad reps for doing it. Obviously, we're literally protesting what you're doing to us right now.
Right.
So they're still going. So I didn't make it this past Sunday because I took some much needed me time and I did like a big family Zoom. I have 5 siblings. Right. So we all and my dad and my nieces and nephews, or my dad, the grandkids, we all did like a big family like Zoom game night or game day, whatever. But they're really happening and they're huge. I would say you see less during the week. A lot of them are really happening on weekends at this point. Part of that, I'm not exactly sure why. My guess is that like people are still trying to work and stuff, but I think people are also finding different ways to protest. Right. So part of what it is I felt it was important for me to actually be in the streets a couple of times, but it was equally as important for me to do our Blurs in the Hood town hall. We raised $3,500 doing that, and we're able to donate that to like really important causes, like going to other people's streams and doing interviews and sharing my knowledge and my experience and providing resources is equally as important as being in the streets and yelling no justice, no peace. Right. Because you need both the actual protest. You have to have that. The point of a protest is to disrupt the norm. You have to do that. But you also need action steps to move in the next direction, and part of that is educating people. So I've been finding myself doing both, and I've been noticing a lot of people are starting to do that too. They're now focusing more on donating money or time to certain causes than just being out in the streets. You know what I mean? So you're getting both, which is
yeah, and that's actually really good to hear as well, man. Because I see that here too. I haven't been able to go out to protest solely because I'm just home not babysitting, but I'm saying homeschooling my daughter. So it's like I don't want to put her through that as well. But like you said, I've been finding different ways as well to protest from this side and saying, speaking up and doing what I can to further the movement, to let people know like what's happening to us right now is not right. And when I see what you guys do, it's definitely inspirational for me. When Jay Washington did he just did a straight up video addressing all of this stuff, and I was just like, wow. That was the first time I saw him really candid. Like he really just didn't like, he just went there, and I was just like, wow. Like, and it spoke to me. I even messaged him. I said, yo, I saw your video and thank you for that. I really did enjoy what you had to say. And I felt really inspired by that. And he responded back. So the things that you guys do definitely make an impact on what y'all do. And I personally want to thank y'all for that, because you guys are amazing. But the last question I wanted to ask you is that about a couple days ago, about 3-4 days ago, we got the PS5 Sony announcement. Now, I've said on my channel, I was a little bit underwhelmed. Okay. The only thing that caught my attention, which I think you probably know where I'm going with this, is the Miles Morales Spider-Man trailer. Insomniac Games did come out and say it's a full standalone game. It's not an expansion, this BS that Sony said it was. But it's a full, 5 to 10 hour game of a story about Miles Morales. Now, I know you love black comic book characters. I love black comic book characters. When I saw this trailer, I was literally in tears, freaking out. My wife was like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, I was like going in, and I said, if I buy a PlayStation 5, it would be solely for this game. Everything they announced after that was just terrible. So for me, I wanted to ask you, did this trailer, first part of this did you play the previous game, PS4 Spider-Man?
I really wanted to. So I don't have a PS4. Mm-hmm. It's one of the things that I've been trying to figure out how I could get one. But again, with no real substantial income coming in, I'm on a shoestring budget. I can't do it, right? So then I'm still thinking to myself, okay, we get a PS4, whatever. Then I saw this. If the PS5 ends up being backwards compatible, because there's been a number of PS4 games I wanted to play. I wanted to play the Spider-Man game. Mm-hmm. I really, really, really wanted to play the Final Fantasy VII remake, badly, because I never got to play the original. Mm-hmm. So I've been freaking out how I can do it. If it's backwards compatible, because already seeing this trailer, they've completely sold me. The only thing that makes me a little hesitant, the rumor is that it's going to be $850 for this. And if it's $850, y'all gonna have to miss me with that shit.
Yeah.
And come on.
And see, I saw that same thing. I saw it was $850, and then I saw another one for $700. I said, the only time I've ever spent that kind of money is on a MacBook. And
literally on a computer.
Yeah. I use that every day. I'm not gonna. I don't play my PlayStation 4 every day. I only have 2 games, so nah, I'm not gonna.
It just doesn't. You genuinely miss me with that because it's not like you're introducing a new media platform. Everybody has Blu-ray players, and either their old game systems or just as a Blu-ray player. It's not gonna do your taxes. It's not gonna babysit your kids. Well, it does for some parents, but you know what I'm saying. It's not $800 worth of equipment. I'm sorry. It doesn't do enough for me to justify spending that kind of money. Now, some people are going to do it because it just is what it is. Mm-hmm. But it won't be me. Unless I work for a company that is sponsoring this, that is yo, buy a PS5, you're going to be a PS5 guy. In that case, I'll be playing every motherfucking game. But otherwise, I can't do it if it's going to be that expensive.
But the question I wanted to ask you was what did you think of the trailer? And also, do you think that we're closer to get a live action Miles Morales movie maybe within the next 3 to 5 years?
That's a good question. I think this opens the door for it. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how quickly they're going to do it, especially when you consider the idea of just Spider-Man in general is still technically up in the air between Disney and Sony.
Yeah.
They're obviously going to continue to push with the Into the Spider-Verse films because they're already doing a sequel. Mm-hmm. I think the fact that Miles is finally getting the shine that is due him because he is such an interesting character to be. He's biracial, he's bisexual. He has his own power set. He shares some of the powers of Peter, but he's actually stronger than Peter. It's just that he's a kid, so he hasn't fully developed a lot of that stuff yet. Mm-hmm. I think that it makes him so much more interesting. Even the fact that when you saw Into the Spider-Verse, obviously cops fucking suck. We've been talking about that for the last couple of weeks now. Yeah. And his dad being one, and so the weird balance of his dad be Spider-Man's a damn vigilante. I don't But then at the same time, you see that weird transition of dealing with it. You know what I'm saying? There's so much depth to him. I cannot wait. And I hope they do. And if they do eventually do a live action, I hope I'm in a place that I get to be a part of it. I'm a little too old probably to play Miles, but I don't know. Shit, let me come in and play his dad or something. Because you already got Donald Glover as Aaron, as Uncle Aaron. So
I mean, I said on my show, I said that I don't really see it happening solely because of the Disney Marvel thing. They did balance out first. Yeah, they did introduce some of those Easter eggs with Donald Glover. However, though, I'm super excited for the game. I want to see a live action Miles Morales movie. I think, after seeing Black Panther, there should be no reason why we shouldn't get more black or ethnic superheroes within either the MCU or DCEU or whatever. So I just and by the way, because you have the background of Wakanda, real quick, what did you think about the Black Panther movie?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I saw it in theaters 4 times. I was walking around in Wakanda forever to everybody. I was calling every white person I knew a colonizer. The movie was incredible. And I think that honestly, you are going to see that. I think seeing how successful Black Panther was, considering it is, if I'm not mistaken, this second highest grossing MCU movie and the only one to win Oscars. You're definitely going to see it. There's already talks about Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, getting her own movie. You're already kind of putting into place the fact that you have Falcon taking up the Captain America mantle, and Falcon and Winter Soldier is big. I think it's only a matter. You already saw Luke Cage as a show.
Yeah.
You've seen Black Lightning from the DC side of things over in the Arrowverse.
Yeah.
So it's all stuff that is leaning towards that. You just hope that the momentum continues to run with it. So if we really do introduce Storm to the Wakandaverse in the MCU, that's huge. I think that you do lend yourself to, again, Miles coming up, probably not for a while, because the other thing about Miles in that dynamic, Peter is an adult and Miles ends up being a kid. And then Peter, as we saw in the Spider-Verse, ends up dying, and Miles takes over the mantle. So, like, you're a little ways away before you get to that anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think that there's plenty of room open to see that. I hope that we get like an Icon movie or something like that soon. That would be dope. I would love to see a Steel remake, just not with Shaq, because that shit was trash.
Oh, God, no. That was so trash. Oh, and you know what's funny? I saw that movie like when I was like 22 later on in life. I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't see this when I was younger, because this is so bad.
And I would even love them to reboot Green Lantern, and maybe you do, instead of Green Lantern and focusing on Hal Jordan, maybe you do like you don't have to focus on one. Maybe you do a Green Lantern core movie, and then you get Jon Stewart involved. You know what I'm saying? And then you could have like Hal, John, and like Guy Gardner, or like the three of them are on a mission together or something like that. Like that would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many different ways that you can play that out, and I hope it continues to do so.
Yeah, me too. Especially, I would love to see just Jon Stewart and Guy Gardner live action, like having that comedic banter. I think that would be just mind.
Oh my God. Can you imagine like a good cop, bad cop scenario of Jon Stewart and Guy Gardner like just out in the universe, just like buddy cop shit? It would be so funny.
It would be hilarious. And anyone who's ever read those comics, you know, like those two, they don't hate each other, but they don't necessarily like each other either. So it's just like,
Well, the fact that like, and most people say this, they hate Guy Gardner, but most people respect the hell out of him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because he's actually a good dude. He's just a blowhard. He's an asshole. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
definitely. But you know, thank you so much for being on the show today, Winston. I had a really good time interviewing you. Side note though, because we were talking about black superheroes, I personally, because we said Icon, I would love to see a Static Shock movie.
I have said this a million times. I will drop whatever weight. I will do whatever facial weight. Like, the problem is I have probably just aged out of it where they wouldn't do it now. But I have wanted to be the live action Static Shock for forever. I just need to stop eating so damn much. Like, I feel like that shit would be amazing, and I cannot wait for that movie to come out. It's going to happen eventually. It has
to. Like, oh God, like, I ain't even seen like a fan art of Static and Miles Morales standing together. I was like, oh God, that would be like the best crossover ever. But anyway, I wanted to thank you again for being on the show. Winston, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me at the Swaggy Blurred, TheSwaggyBlerd. That's on all socials. So that's Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all that good stuff. You can find me Mondays on Game Time, as you mentioned, on the Outlaw Nation with John Roca and Jay Washington. Tuesdays on Blurred to the Hood with Jay Washington. That's youtube.com/Blurred to the Hood. Wednesdays, I'll be having a new episode of PBPN dropping. So that was a show I did a while ago called Positive Black People News. I'm reviving it. And it's essentially like Last Week Tonight, but with positive black news stories. So a lot of jokes, but like giving you something you haven't heard before. Like tomorrow I'm dropping a best of my top 5 favorite stories that we did in the original iteration. One of them, for example, is about this young girl that made it to college at 13. Oh, wow. And me talking about how such a slacker I was. How I was like, I was just happy if I like beat Donkey Kong and made it to basketball practice. I don't like you go to college, like, you sit your ass down somewhere. Mm-hmm. So like stuff like that. And then Thursdays on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/theswaggyblurred, I do a show called Swag Back Thursday. So I play an old school game, and I was gonna play old school hip hop while I did it. Twitch has changed the rules that you can't play copyrighted music. So I make a playlist for people to take away, almost like a souvenir each episode, of all the top hip hop and R&B of that year. So episode 2 will be Donkey Kong Country, and that's 94. So we're going to get a lot of dope hip hop there. So definitely check that out. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man.
Awesome. And You guys know where to find us here at Momentum Media. Please like, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel where you get all the updates of every time we're releasing a video here on our channel. And once again, I want to thank Winston for being on the show. Please catch him on all the things that he references. And also, I'm going to say this now in the universe that Winston will probably be the next Inner Geekdom champion at the Schmodown. If not the next one, probably the team champion or just the overall champion at the Schmodown.
I'll take. You know I'm managing right now. I'll take that Chandru's going to get that belt. How about that? I'll take that all day.
Most definitely. Isn't there a manager's belt too?
I'm not sure. I don't know if they're going to do that. I hope they do. That'd be fun. The only thing that's scary about that is you do understand one of those managers is Sam Levine. So that's
okay. So
terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be real. I don't know if I can beat Sam Levine. I'm going to be very real about that.
Yeah, that dude.
That dude is a beast. But thank you guys once again for watching this video. And as always, you have a blessed day.